Emma walked out the door. Edward knew it was inevitable despite his repeated warnings and his realization of where this was going. But she considered herself very cunning and devious, and she didn't believe that Edward knew everything about her affair with Jason. She didn't realize that Edward, over the past few months, had seen signs pointing to her cheating. But no matter what he told her or did to stop her, it wasn't helping the situation. They had good times when they were out with friends, but the last 3 months had clearly been very bad. And to Edward came the realization the good times were there but irrevocably gone. Emma remained his wife for a little while longer. Then a call came from an unknown woman who told him about Emma and Jason's affair. She told him some details of their meetings, nothing in particular that her friend Stella was not to be trusted. But if he talked to her, she could tell him much more since she was against the affair. Edward met with a divorce lawyer and drafted a statement of claim to the court. There was no division of property, so he didn't mention anything about it. 26 years of marriage was coming to an end, and the unknown lay ahead of him. Although in fact, the marriage ended the day he realized that Emma was seeing someone else. No, he tried to stop her, talk to her, but she, realizing that he had only speculation and no proof, had simply ridiculed him. That was it. Only today he had both proof of the affair and knew the man she was seeing. Moreover, he had met her lover's wife, and they had had a long conversation. Sarah, after examining the evidence Edward had gathered, asked him to do nothing for the time being, and yesterday informed him that she was ready to banish her lover because he has decided not to meet with his wife's friend Stella, although she has called him on separate matters related to work counseling. Yesterday, Edward met in a cafe with his son, who was living in a civil partnership with his girlfriend, Rose. The son said that Rose and I have decided to legalize our relationship. We have decided to apply for a wedding. Come with mom to our house for an event, kind of like an engagement party. You see, son, mom, and I have some problems. I don't know where we went wrong. I will just say that 26 years of marriage has been wonderful except for the last 3 months. They crossed out all the good things in our lives. Although our lives have had their challenges, we have had a wonderful life. You are our children. You and Letta are healthy, well adjusted to life. You are getting a decent education, and I, as a value professional, have the opportunity to help you. Also, as I have noticed, you no longer need our help. That it is just that both Letta and I have specialties that allow us to earn good money even during our studies. Tell me, what happened to your mom? I don't know what happened to mom. I think it's emptiness syndrome. It happens to all parents when their children became independent. First, you left to go to school. Then you started your own families and decided to live on your own. All of this affected my mom more than I thought it would. And then, 3 months ago, she changed dramatically. Our lives became drastically different. I did everything I could, but there was no change. I recently found out she's seen a young man who's affecting her. Have you tried talking to her? No, there's no point. I just can't accept her after all she's been through with him. I have decided to get a divorce. It is Friday, and I will file for divorce. Does mom know about this? She will get a notice from the court. I will leave a copy of petition on Saturday when I move out of our apartment. Where's mom gonna be? She's got a date with Jason at a hotel in the next town over. She's spending the night. She will be back on Sunday. What does she say? She says she's taking a friend to her parents' house for the weekend to help out around the house. They live in the country. And you believe that? So Stella's been covering for her for a long time. They work together, and she's introduced her to Jason at work. He was a buyer for the firm. It is a very close-knit office. Everybody loves each other to pieces. What is he like? 10 years younger than Mom. Married, a daughter he seems to love. And what about his wife? I talked to her. She's thinking it over. And she is using this situation to get away from him. Tomorrow, while he is in a neighboring town in a hotel, she's gonna move everything out of the apartments. She's gonna live with her parents. She owns the apartments and she will put it up for sale. And she will take the car like she said she would. Will she steal a car? No, the car was originally registered to the wife's parents. She found out she will leave it in a guarded parking lot near the bus station and take a shuttle bus to the next town for a date. Why the neighboring town? They are afraid of getting exposed here. They know a lot of people in town, although everyone at my mom's work knows about her affair and is jealous. Where will you move to? Or have you found another woman? No, I haven't found anyone, but I've been offered a job in the region. The salary is twice as high, and the main thing is that they give me office housing. I went to see it, a modest house, 2 rooms, a toilet, a bathroom, a kitchen, gas heating, water supply. There's not much furniture, but that's solvable. I have got the money. I will buy myself a refrigerator, finish the bedroom. Do you have to have a bedroom, son? What do you think of me like that? I'm not going to stop. I'm going to move on with my life. Tell me, besides you and the woman at the office, does anyone else know about Mom and this Jason guy? It is a small town and everything's out in the open if you ask. You will find out that someone knows or saw something, but they are very conspiratorial in our town. They have casual lunch hour meetings once a week, and it's been going on for at least 3 months. But they decided to meet him in the neighboring town. It is only a 40-minute drive, but there's less people they know. What else do you know about them? For a 48-year-old woman, our mom looks like a 40-year-old woman would envy her. As for him, he's cheated on his wife before. And has his wife found out now? He's not just seeing our mom. So should we tell her? Why? Well, you could tell her, but I won't take her back, so I'm not interested. No, Dad, for some reason, I don't want to see her either. Then just share it with your sister, and it doesn't really matter to me today where she is gone or who she is with. Frankly, I'm tired, and her lame excuse that she went to help her friend's parents gives me a break from the tension between us. Why didn't you tell her before? Because Jason's wife asked me to, but today she is willing to leave him with nothing and put him on a child support. When can I tell Leda? Saturday at 11 o'clock p.m. She will be arriving at the hotel, and I will have checked out by then. As for my participation in your engagement party, do it in a modern way, without all the people. Do you need money? No, Dad, I don't need money, and I'm definitely not inviting Mom. But I will learn from your mistakes. I will talk to Rose, and we will make a prenup to await this in the future. Tell you what, why don't you talk to Mom directly? You mean I would have to talk to her about what's going on? Yes, Dad. You just want to run away now. Son, I want to live in English without saying goodbye. I guess after 26 long years together, is there anything to talk about? It is not that Lo is dying. It's that she is killing it and ignoring my suffering and my pain. And then, one day, I saw she has no love for me. I began to think that she would be happier without me, and I myself would be happier with someone else or even alone. And so, Emma walked out the door. The time was about 8 o'clock. Edward, who was eating breakfast in the kitchen, said nothing to her today. He didn't care where she was going. He automatically washed the dishes and began to get ready for the road. Emma went outside. She was nervous and a little cowardly about to spend 2 nights with Jason, whom she considered her friend and, to some extent, her lover. He understood her, listened carefully to all her problems, never judged her actions, never demanded anything from her. Emma considered meeting him a gift of fate. No pressure, no expectations, no whining. He never lectured her on morality like her husband. He simply understood her, and she was convinced that meeting Jason would spark a new relationship with her work-obsessed husband. At the same time, she was convinced that her husband was also doing the right thing since the money he earned went into the family pots and was spent on the children. But lately, the children, as they got on their feet, no longer needed their parents' money. Now Edward and Emma began to prepare for the birth of grandchildren, especially since their laughter Letta was already married and, as it were, hinted to her parents about a possible addition. Son Ben also lived, not alone, with a girl, Rose. They were a beautiful couple but did not hurry to marry. The relationship with Jason Emma saw as some elements of friendship. She was well aware that nothing long-term would happen, but the meetings with him intrigued and beckoned her. But there was a peculiar charm to the affair. Emma recalled the unfortunate experience of meeting Jason at his companion's apartment. Then they had come to the conclusion that such meetings were unnecessary. Using a hotel or motel in their town wasn't safe either. Small town, lots of acquaintances. They decided that a quiet town 40 minutes away was best for their privacy. In fact, many shuttle buses from the bus station went to other settlements through this town. Thus, they could even get there in different shuttle buses. However, Stella told her how to organize the meeting. The girls at work told her what to be prepared for if you meet someone else's husband. They gave her recommendations, including how to cover her face if the lover's wife came to the showdown. To this advice, Emma, laughing, replied that the main thing for them is a spiritual fellowship, and she is not going to part with her husband. The girls laughed, and only one of them, in all seriousness, suddenly said, "Fool, I know you are Edward. If he finds out you are boyfriends, he will leave you. He will get over himself and dump you. You won't get him back. I wish you hadn't been so stupid. And this Walker has a whole cohort like you. So, he takes you to a neighboring town, to a third-class hotel. I know his wife caught him once. If he gets caught again, she will throw him out. Mary, what are you talking about? I'm telling you what I know. You should ask Stella why she left you such an enviable view, and she is single." Emma thought about Mary's words, but never spoke to her friends. She had forgotten about it, and she remembered it only now, sitting on the bus. She decided to meet Piotr and talk to him about it. 40 minutes of driving, and here she got off in the center, not far from the hotel. Just as Mary had predicted, the hotel was third-rate. Jason met her in the lobby next to the front desk and suggested, "Let's go to the restaurant. The room's still occupied. They have a 12 o'clock checkout time, but the tenant has already moved out. They will clean it up and we will have a breakfast. Come on, I haven't had breakfast either." "Why not? My husband woke up and had breakfast. I didn't want it to cross him." "Emma, after our meetings, you will have a new, deeper relationship with your husband, and meeting him in the morning will be a joy." Emma and Jason walked to the restaurant, which had been open since 9:30 in the morning. They studied the menu and quickly placed their order. While waiting for it to arrive, Jason and Emma talked for a while. Jason complimented her on her good looks, noting, "Emma, you always look so good. You dress very stylishly. I would say businesslike but sexy. I don't know how the men in your office can work in peace." And then the phone rang. Judging by the ringtone, it was her daughter calling. Emma asked Jason, "It's the daughter. You keep quiet for now. I will answer." "No problem." Emma pressed the answer icon and heard her daughter's voice asking, "Hi Mom, I heard you have become the centerpiece of the third-rate cheap hotels. Leda, what are you talking about? Ben told me he met with his father yesterday. My father didn't tell me anything about meeting him. What was he supposed to tell you? Are you in the room with Jason or are you still on the shuttle? I'm with Stella at her mom's helping out. Oh, come on. What's the big lie? You remember when cell phones came out? My dad put Find Me programs in our phones. Well, they still work. What do you want? I wanted to see if you're going to Ben's engagement party tonight, but it doesn't matter. He said he won't invite you because Dad won't be here and you are busy till tomorrow. Did something happen to Dad? What is going on? You don't know? Dad left you. Emma's heart froze and she automatically asked, so he is alive? I don't know, his phone is disconnected, but according to Ben, he is moving out of the apartment today. Emma asked in confusion, what, daughter? I don't understand. What is going on? You don't understand? Okay, Mom, I can see you are very busy. My husband found out you are having an affair and told me you are not welcome in our home. I'm willing to meet you though. Call me. The phone beeped. Emma sat at the table, breathing like a beached fish. Finally thinking, she grabbed the phone and tried to call Edwards, but the call went to voicemail. Jason, realizing that her husband had found out about the affair, calmly said, Emma, you're about to become a free woman. You think about your marriage and your future. I'm afraid things look bad enough for you, but you don't know it yet. Where are you going? I have to go home to my husband. I need to talk to him. You said yourself you are just roommates, not husband and wife. I just need to talk to him. Look, I rented a room for 2 days, and you have got a problem. Don't you have a problem? No, my wife is not like that. Well, enjoy the room, but without me. Emma grabbed her purse and headed for the exit. Jason was upset. He had been looking forward to this retreat for a week, and suddenly it was gone. After thinking about it, he decided to call his wife back to make sure he was okay. He dialed the number and heard her voice. I'm listening, Sarah. Hi, I thought I would give you a call. How's it going? It is fine. I got the car out of the parking lot. My brother's moving it to my parents' house. Everything I wanted to get out of the apartment is already loaded. I will move the rest out as needed. Yeah, you be careful with the money. You have got nothing in your accounts unless you got some pennies on your secret card. Sarah, I don't understand what's going on. Jason, you are a very smart boy, and I have already said goodbye twice. You knew very well what would happen if you crossed the line, and here's what's going to happen. I'm putting the apartments up for sale. If you want to buy it from me, and don't forget we have an adorable daughter. Pay your child support on time. Sarah, don't joke around. I'm going back immediately. Wait for me, and we will talk about it. Jason went to the waitress and cancelled the order, then dialed Emma's number. She answered. What do you want, Emma? I'm coming with you. I'm in trouble too. You told me your wife wasn't like that. I didn't know she knew anything, and I don't know what she even knows. We need to unite. It's gonna be every man for himself. Are you on your way? No, the shuttle's not here yet. I will be quick. 10 minutes later, after giving up a license plate he never entered, Jason was at the bus stop. A nervous Emma was also standing there. Jason asked, Did you get through to your husband? No, and my son refused to talk to me. I called my daughter back, and she said she would call her father and ask him to call me. Indeed, soon Emma's phone rang, and she answered it immediately. Edwards, listen to me. We need to talk about this. I can't believe you left. And yet I did. Yes, my heart is broken, and I don't want to talk to you. I just don't want to talk, but I'm calling at my daughter's request. Leda said I should call you, that you are out of your minds with grief and anger and regrets. I don't know what kind of grief, anger and regrets. probably grief that the weekends didn't work out the way you planned. But there's nothing in your way or distracting you right now. As for the anger, is it because I found out or because I caught you? And that's what you regret? Edward, no, it is not like that. You were never supposed to know about it, and I'm really ashamed of what I let myself do to you. But I thought it would only make things better between us. Jason is a wonderful, interesting man, and he is just a friend to me, a friend with a lot of privileges. Don't say that. We had nothing going on. We didn't. So you just had intellectual conversations about how to keep the family together. Okay, I called you so you wouldn't play the innocent victim because my daughter said you were afraid I was gonna kill myself or have a heart attack. Well, I don't have anything like that planned. I'm not saying I feel great, but no, I'm not going to die. But can we get together and talk? I'm going home right now. Not today. Today you deal with your Jason. And he's got girlfriends like you, by the way. I'm done talking. Edwards ended the conversation, and that's when the shuttle bus pulled up. They paid the fare for each of them and sat down next to each other. Emma asked Jason, "Is it true? Is what true? That you are not only one with one? It's all slander." They drove on in silence, each of them thinking about something else. Jason wondered how Edward knew about this woman. Once he got a woman, he never arranged any dates, no dinners, no socializing with them, never initiated other people into his relationship with them, and never told these women that he loved them. Jason never pushed these women away or sought to keep them around. Yes, and they were well aware that this relationship would not last. They knew that one day Jason would leave. In general, he already thought to end this body lifestyle because he had already been caught twice and was forgiven by his wife. But he didn't want to break up the family. Now he was going to the city and did not know where he would sleep, how he would live. He hoped a friend would take him in for a while. There was another woman, not a poor woman, but her age was prohibitive. He had been introduced to her by Stella, a friend of Emma's. As she explained to him, she was her mother's younger sister. She lived alone on the outskirts in her own house. Today it was one of his options, where he would be sheltered, fed, and put to bed. Emma was thinking of her own. Although she had managed to contact Edward by phone, she wasn't satisfied with the conversation. She just couldn't say everything she wanted to say. In fact, she was surprised that he had called her. And what really struck her was the tone in which he spoke to her. She didn't know how to explain her behavior to her husband. No, she could say she was sorry, but what else? He had asked her correctly, "What are you regretting? That the planned weekend had been derailed or that you've been caught?" She decided she needed to think of a way to explain, and to do that, she needed to get her thoughts together. When he finally decided to talk, be ready. It had been about an hour and a half since Edward had called Emma. By now, he had left town and was driving down the highway to his new place of residence. Calling his son, he inquired, "How are you doing?" "Yeah, we're getting ready for the engagement party. Leda and her husband will be here in a minute. How are you?" "I'm fine. I will be at my new place in another hour." "Did your mom call?" "I called her at Leda's request." "What did you talk about?" Nothing. And now I have gotten a bunch of texts asking me to meet her." "But did you decide, son?" "What can I decide? That is not why I broke my routine and left town. I don't want to see her. But someday I'm gonna have to. I will be ready for it. But for now, I don't want it." "And when will that be?" "Aren't you coming to my wedding?" "If you call me, I will be there. What about your divorce?" "I don't have to be there. I hired a lawyer." Emra approached the house and noticed that their car was not in its usual place. She went up to the floor and went to the front door, opening it with her key. She entered the empty apartment. It was unusual. Edward, he was always home, and if anyone came in late, it was her. She walked further in and called softly for her husband. There was no answer, though she figured he must be here. She walked through the rooms, the apartment empty without her husband. She looked around and noticed that her husband's things were missing. She noticed that the photos of them together had disappeared from the walls. She found them in the trash. On the table in the kitchen lay a tattered wedding photo, and on top of it was Edward's wedding ring. Emma sank powerlessly onto the stool and thought to herself, "What have I done? How can I beg for forgiveness now?" But there was no answer. The house itself seemed emptier now than it had when they had moved in years ago. And then she remembered the prophecy of Ketia, who had warned her of the possible consequences and advised her to ask Stella why she had given her such a ball. It seemed that Mary knew more than she had been told. After some thought, she dialed Mary's number. After a few dialed tones, Mary answered. "Emma, hi, what's up? Aren't you on a romantic rendezvous with Jason?" "Mary, who told you about my romantic rendezvous today?" "Stella's always talking about your affairs, so the whole office knows about it and is expecting to hear more on Monday." "How do you know? Jason has a cohort of women like me?" "Well, cohort is a convention. He has 2 girlfriends like you, all of them with no pretensions. The only one with a claim is his wife. But as far as we know, if she catches him with a woman again, she's gonna put him out of business. And the fact that he takes women to a 3rd-class hotel in a neighboring town, so he himself bragged to his friends, saying that his wife will not catch him anymore, and she precautions these meetings. And the fact that you're referred to Stella, are you stupid? Stella's had her eye on your husband for a long time. She's been looking for an excuse to call them to consult on work matters. The office is taking bets on whether Stella will steal your husband or not. So she gave you this pretext, and he doesn't care which woman serves him. And you couldn't warn me. Oh, how sensitive we have become. What about yourself? What about yourself at the New Year's Eve party? I argued about which glass Dasher would fall down after. No, to stop the fool. So you encouraged her to drink. Dasher, drink. You spent New Year's Eve and holidays at home, and she's in intensive care with poisoning. Why didn't you stop her? I stopped her and called an ambulance. Okay, what do you got? I got caught, and my husband left. It is not me you should be looking for. It is your best friend Stella. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if she is the one who ratted you out to your husband. Go to her and talk to your friends. I will tell you what I know about your boyfriends. I know what she told me. How she knows is a little unclear. After finishing her conversation with Ketia, Emma dialed Stella, who answered, "Hi Emma, how was your trip? Did it go well? I need to talk to you. Can I come over?" "Emma, I'm not at home. I'm going to my aunt Thermes. Well, you know her. She's my mom's little sister. You didn't go to your mom's?" "I was at my mom's, but my aunt called and told me to come to her right away. If you want, let's meet at the center and take the shuttle together. You have already been to her place." "I will do that. I will be at the bus stop in 10 minutes. They met at the bus stop but didn't have time to talk. The car came and they were far away from each other. After 30 minutes of driving around the city, they reached the final stop. They were talking about nothing. They went to the house of Tamara's aunt on the right of her favorite niece. Stella entered the house, and Emma followed her. They looked into the kitchen, then went into the bedroom and were stunned. The aunt was lying in bed with Jason in her arms. Jason hid his head under the blankets, and the aunt said calmly, "Come on, my niece knows that you are run to me. And you, what are you doing up? Go to the kitchen. I will be right back." Indeed, after a couple of minutes, Aunt Tamara entered the kitchen and announced it. "He has a problem. His wife kicked him out of the house. She was jealous of some chick, and the guy got hurt. Ask to stay until he decides what to do, okay? What I called you about, I need you to order me some eyeglasses at the optician's. Here's the prescription. It's all right here. I will have them for you next weekend. And get me some fancy frames because I have a boyfriend. You are the one who introduced me. I'll beat him off. Are you going to have a tea? No, we will run. We've got lots to do. Suit yourself. The friends went outside and headed for the bus stop. Emma asked Stella, "Why don't you tell me everything? Where Jason came from and what he's doing here?" "I'm in shock myself." "Okay, don't play dumb. Tell me, did you take my husband back to our place?" "Edward, did he leave?" "Yes, he left, and apparently he knew a lot. Didn't you supply him with information? He even knew about my date tonight at the hotel. So he made a scene?" "No, he just moved out and said he was gonna file for divorce." "And the husband, where did he go?" "I don't know. I think he moved in with you. I mean, you wanted him. That is why you got me Jason." "I don't have an Edward. I went to my mother's, as we agreed. When I got there, my aunt Tamara called. I got ready to go to her place. Then you called. How long have you known Jason? What do you care? So you set him up with me so you could steal Edwards?" "Why would I steal Edwards? He needs a reliable woman, and you were only reliable on the surface. 1 week of subtle siege of Jason, and you threw away the white flag." "That is not true. We had nothing." "So you didn't go to his friend's house, although Jason said he would never been so inept in his life, and wondered how your husband lived with you." Edward finished unloading his stuff. He went to the store and bought groceries, then spent a couple hours drinking beer. He set his phone alarm for 7 o'clock in the morning and looked at the text messages he had missed. A few of them were from his wife, but Edward did not read them. Then from his daughter Leda asking to meet her. Edward was not going to travel to a neighboring town for the sake of a conversation with his daughter, especially since he had business here. He decided not to answer but to call back tomorrow on Sunday. When Edward woke up, he began to figure out what his daily routine should be. He realized that he was alone and all the household chores fell to him. Breakfast first, he decided, followed by a closet review in preparation for the work week. Tomorrow he had to go to a new job, a new team, and he didn't want to look sloppy. The breakfast issue was quickly resolved. When sorting through the closets, it turned out that he didn't have an iron and ironing board. He started the car and drove to the shopping center, from where he returned 2 hours later. There, in addition to the iron and ironing boards, Edward bought a refrigerator. He had the refrigerator delivered. He paid for everything in cash. When he returned home, he remembered that he wanted to call his daughter and dialed her number. "Hello, Leda. You wanted to hear from me?" "Good afternoon, Daddy. But I wanted to see you too. It is a bit complicated. Let's just talk. I know from Ben that you caught Mom cheating, and you are divorcing her. My mom doesn't really explain anything to me. You don't share much with me either. You have told Ben a lot though. What would you like to know? When did it all start with her?" "I don't know that, but at least 3 months. You can check with your mom though." "Yeah, I could, but she's avoiding uncomfortable questions. She starts crying. So tell me, how did the engagement go?" "Thanks to you, badly." "What does that have to do with me?" "Ben decided he needed a prenup in case of a situation like yours. Rose is against prenups. She said she wasn't like his mom. As a result, they had a fight." "Why, daughter? Maybe Ben's right." "I didn't think I would get to this point 26 years ago either." "Why don't you forgive your mom? She hasn't asked for forgiveness." "I think because she doesn't think she is to blame for what happened." "Tell me, why didn't you intervene 3 months ago?" "I found out about a week ago, and I stayed out of it at the request of her friend's wife. She had to shovel out everything he had, and she did. I think she even took his clothes, but he's gonna go to court. It is complicated. First of all, she said let him go. Secondly, She found man whose woman he already met at that hotel. So he just getting into trouble. And who are they, Letta? I wasn't interested in. Tell me, if your husband cheated on you, what would you do? I would leave. No, I would throw him out in what he was wearing. You see, I'm just divorcing your mother. That's, we will get through this. I'm on your side. I feel sorry for mom, though. She wasn't a bad person. I'm not asking you to hate your mom. Everything that happens is between me and her. And she's your mom and Ben's mom. She's gonna need your support. I don't know why Ben is so set against her. He will cool down, and everything will be fine. Okay, Dad? She's still my mom. I love her, even though I don't like what she did. I understand you. Emma woke up and turned on the television, but after a quick look at her favorite programs, she found nothing to distract her from her worries. As a result, the TV was just background noise. She got out of the bed, tucked it in, and thrown on a rope, walked to the bathroom. After a contrasting shower, she felt some relief. She liked the shower, where the main element was the watering can. It had a large size, with the water stream divided into a large number of individual drops and falling, creating the effect of heavy rain. The mechanical effect of water on the body relaxed the muscles and stimulated blood circulation. By adjusting the strength of the flow, it was possible to make the tropical rain more or less intense. When she left the bathroom, her gaze fell onto empty closets and drawers where her husband's belongings used to be. This realistically meant that her husband had left her, that the marriage could indeed be over. After thinking it over, she decided she should call Letta and Ben and try to get them on her side. Maybe if they helped her to see Edward, she could think about reconciliation. I remembered yesterday's conversation with Stella. What a snake on her chest. The conversation with her ended with her slapping her, and tomorrow they would have to meet at work. And if Mary was to be believed, the whole office was eager to know how she had spent the weekend with her favorite man. Emma picked up the phone and called Letta. After the fourth ring, she answered. Hi, Mom. Is something wrong? I wanted to talk to you. I'm a little busy, but I will make time for you. Could you call Daddy? I want to meet him and talk to him. I don't know, Mom. Can you talk to Ben? I can, but it's complicated too. He had a fight with his fiancée last night. Rose, she's such a good girl. What did they fight about? He thought they needed a prenup in case she cheated on him, and she said she would never do that because she loved him and wouldn't cheat on him, so it ended in a scandal. Tell me, how did you come up with that? Because I'm stupid. My friend instilled in me that I do not get younger, and that if a handsome man 10 years younger than me shows interest in me, makes me feel desirable, I need to grab him with both hands. And did you? I wanted to, only my friend didn't warn me that she herself was interested in Edward, and she saw him near her. So nothing. I slapped her, and we broke up. Besides, it turned out she was the one who would find the trapper for me. Where did he go? Nowhere. He is living with a woman even older than me. My ex-girlfriend, though. Okay, I will call Ben. Have him call you back. Letta talked her brother into it, and he called Emma that afternoon. They talked about nothing. Emma didn't learn anything new. That is how the weekend went. On Monday morning, Emma called her boss and told him that she would be late for half an hour. She quickly got dressed and went to her husband's office. There she learned that Edward no longer worked here. They didn't tell me where he had taken a job because they didn't know. I went to work. I could tell by the giggling office staff that they already knew about her bad weekends. Met Stella with a badly made up black eye. She walked up to Emma and said, "Oh, come on, don't be mad." Well, I had Edward all wrong. I thought he would come running to me for the truth, and I would comfort him after we broke up. I called him, and what did he tell you? But nothing. He just flat out told me to go myself and hang up on me. As for Jason, I would know him for a long time. It was his wife who caught me, and it was his first time. She forgave him then. Then there was another one. And then, about 6 months ago, I ran into him. I was on my way to my aunt's house, and he gave me a ride in his car. He spent the night at her place. His wife was in sanitarium with the baby. Now he's got nowhere to go. His salary is small. He pretended to be Rothschild in front of us. But he is as naked as a falcon. That is why he used this third-rate hotel, and you've already blown the whistle on the office. Everyone knew you were on a date. Who told my husband? I did. I thought he would come to me for confirmation. He didn't. Why? Yes, it did. You ruined my family. And no, girlfriend, you did this to yourself. The day passed with nothing new at the office. They discussed her forthcoming divorce. Some left, some sincerely sympathized. But Emma decided for herself that she would get her husband back at any cost. In the evening, when she returned home, she prepared a quick dinner. At that time, the phone rang, and judging by the melody, it was her husband's. Edward decided that today was the day he needed to talk to Marina. She picked up the phone from the first ring. Edward, thank you for calling. I want to apologize right away for what I've done to our family. My kids asked me to call you. What is it? I want to talk. When and where can we do that? We are talking now, so talk. No, I mean face to face. Will you come home so we can sit down and discuss this together? After some thought, Edward replied, Sure, I still need to pick up something I haven't picked up yet, and I don't want to give it to your lover. Can you be here by 7 o'clock tonight? No, not unless it's tomorrow, provided your lover isn't here. Edward, I'm sorry, but he's gone. Okay, I will be there tomorrow. Edward promised he would be at her place tonight. It turned out that the new job required a spare part for a complicated machine. Edward arranged to get the parts using old connections, but it could not be picked up until another day. Closer to 5 o'clock in the evening, Emma was glad he had finally called her. Yes, Edward was brief and unemotional, but he had agreed to a meeting. She had to get ready, plan to cook a great dinner so she could talk while eating, and by all means dress nicely so he could see what he was throwing away. The next day, Edward shaved, put on a nice business suit, and determined to show her what she had lost. He stopped by the new office, discussed everything with the director, and close to lunchtime drove out, finishing up all the work stuff. At the appointed time, Edward parked in his usual parking lot. As he walked to the house, Emma, who was watching through the window, noticed that he was dressed quite nicely. When he entered the apartment, appreciating her outfit, he couldn't resist asking, Are you dressed up like that for me, or are you on another date? Emma did not confront him but replied, Welcome, I want our meeting to be pleasant, and we discussed our future together. I have prepared dinner. Come into the kitchen and sit at the table. I came to talk, not to have a dinner. Can we do both? Have a nice meal and discuss our problems? I'm not hungry. I have somewhere else to be once we finish our conversation. Is that why you dressed like that? You have a date, but you can call and cancel. I'm single and I don't date. I'm still married, and that's different from some people I know. Edward, I'm sorry. It's just that my emotions are getting the best of me. Saturday morning, did they get the best of you? I'm so sorry for what I did to you. Please forgive me. You know, I never thought this would ever happen. I always trusted you. You asked me to come here and talk. Let's talk. They went into the hall and sat down in armchairs near the coffee table. Emma was the first to speak. I'm really sorry for what I did. I have asked you before, are you sorry for what you did or for getting caught? And I would like to hear an honest answer. I don't even know how to answer you. I'm sorry I got caught, and I'm sorry I did it at all because I hurt you. Emma, you have to answer all of my questions honestly. If you lie to me, We will never have a relationship again. Tell me, where did you meet this Jason? Stella introduced me to him. We started dating on our lunch break at a coffee shop, but not the one where we all ate lunch at the office. So you saw him every lunch hour? No, we saw him in the cafeteria for 20 minutes once a week for 3 months. I realize now why it was like that. He was just saving money on me. And as a result of such short and infrequent meetings, he managed to tempt you into a closer relationship. Intimacy wasn't my goal. I don't deny I liked him, but I didn't consider him in the long term. Plus, he's married, I'm married. We were just comfortable with each other. Though he suggested I meet him at a hotel this past weekend, and I consented to that. And when was the first time you had a close relationship? I never had anything intimate with him. So, the visit to his friend's apartment a week ago, you forget or you don't want to talk about. We were there, but nothing good happened. So, you went to a third-rate hotel to make up for it. I asked for the truth. Okay, well, when you're ready, we will talk. Edward got up and left. Emma lowered her head and thought. She hadn't realized that her husband knew so much. Edward left the apartment where he had lived for so many years, smiling to himself. He smiled at the fact that he realized he felt no pain over the breakup of his relationship with Emma. Whatever he felt for Emma, it wasn't love anymore. There was some sadness though, but there was also the realization that he just couldn't live with her, regardless of whether or not she had something with Jason. Getting into the car, he thought back to that agony of loss when he first realized Emma had been unfaithful to him and how much it had hurt. Now detached from everything, he lived in his own world where there was room for socializing with his children and for work. Ending his relationship with Emma was a huge relief. Emma wondered how he knew what she had. She had even gotten home before him that day. Emma grabbed her cell phone and dialed Edward. He answered, speaking. Edward, where did you go? We didn't have a deal. Emma, get a lawyer. We are getting a divorce. You're gonna ruin a good marriage over this? Yes, unfortunately, almost 26 years of a happy marriage is gone. Why almost 26? Can't even remember how many years we have been married? No, why not? It is just that you have to take out the last 3 months of those 26 years. I don't know about you, but they certainly weren't happy for me. It was 3 months of lies and deceits, a waste of my time, and we had conversations, discussions, and arguments about cheating. But she always claims I was just a sick maniac. Edward, I still love you. Yes, I've noticed that, and that's why I recommend you get a lawyer. The subpoena is on its way. All of Emma's plans for a nice dinner and conversation fell through. She hoped she could explain to Edward so that he could see that she wanted to feel attractive and desirable. And then there was a man 10 years younger than her. She was already an old woman to him, and the fact that he was attracted to her was a surprise to her. The phone rang. It was her daughter. Mom, hi. Have you talked to Dad? Did he even tell you why he is feeling for divorce? Lada, I cheated on him. I'm so ashamed. I never wanted it, but it happens. I suspected you didn't get along with Dad, but how could you? He and I fought a lot, but I know I still love him, and I don't know what I should do. Tell me, how is it going with Ben and Rose? Have they made up? Yes, Mom. Rose agreed to sign a prenup on Ben's terms. What those terms are, I don't know, I haven't looked into it. Jason woke up to the gentle voice of Tamara. Jason, get up, buddy. You said you had to go to work today. Is it already time? It is time. Here's some money for the shuttle and a coffee to eat at, too. Don't go hungry. What time are you working till? 5 o'clock p.m. Why? 30 minutes on the roads. So dinner will be on the table at 6:15. Yeah, if anyone asks who's coming, just say I'm renting you a corner temporarily. Jason quickly washed his face in the kitchen. He had a heavy breakfast waiting for him. Getting dressed, He noticed that his shirt was washed and neatly ironed. At Jason's office, the female staff quickly got wind of his weekend adventures. The woman wondered where he was living now. They knew his wife wouldn't let him to go home. She would move out with some of his stuff. But looking at his clean, immaculately washed shirts, they noted that Jason had fallen into someone's caring hands. Jason paid no attention to the woman in his office because they were married. He had already made a mistake once when he had gotten involved with a woman he worked with in the same organization. Then he had to change jobs and go looking around for 6 months. Things with her husband had somehow slowly settled down, but it left an unpleasant memory. The first court hearing was scheduled, and at the court, Jason met Emma, who also had a hearing scheduled. The first hearing went the same way. They were given a period of time for reconciliation, and Jason was also charged with child support. At the same time, neither Jason nor Emma had plaintiffs in court. They were represented by attorneys. As time went on, it was getting a little chilly outside in the mornings. Tamara still gave Jason money for transportation and fed him. One day she told him, "I have seen a fall jacket for you at the mall. Go try it on. It is cold in the morning. God forbid you catch a cold. And you should think about winter. I see you don't have any clothes. I will call my wife. Maybe she will give me my clothes back." He called his wife back, and Sarah, after listening to his tearful pleas, answered, "I'm selling the apartments, and there are already buyers. You can come and take everything you have left there. I have moved my things out. How would you like to see your daughter?" "My daughter? You know that's not advisable. She will probably have another dad soon, but she's already forgotten about you and doesn't ask where you have disappeared to. And why do you need her? Just to play and forget this toy? Sarah, I will make it up to you." "Jason, it has already happened in our life twice before." "What? Another man will love my daughter more than me? You know that's exactly what happens. When you come to get your stuff, the neighbor across the hall has the key to the apartment. Take whatever you need." That is how Jason's stuff was resolved, which he told Tamara, but she insisted he buy himself a new jacket she would look at. He and Tamara were also visited by his niece, Stella, and she talked about what was going on with Emma. As Jason realized, Emma lived alone and was awaiting trial. Edward was a no-show, and no one knew where he was living. It was suspected that he didn't live in the town at all. Her children visited her home regularly, but she did not tell anyone what she was talking to them about, as she had become secretive and did not take part in any of the discussions in their women's group. Outwardly, she had not changed much, but she had lost weight in the meantime. Edward had settled into the new group. The women paid attention to him, but he shunned them. They knew that he had adult children living in a neighboring town. He communicated with them by phone. One day, it became known that Edward was going to attend his son's wedding. This was no surprise to him. He knew about the event and expected to meet Emma and mutual acquaintances there. Edward had put a decent amount of money in an envelope for the young people. He traveled to the city in advance by shuttle bus. He rented a hotel room. On the day of the wedding, he came a little early and arranged himself so that he could not be seen. When the young people went to registration hall, he took his place as the father of the groom. Next to Emma, who thought he would be gone, not a single word was spoken at this. When the registration procedure was over and the young people were surrounded by friends and acquaintances, Edward also left the wedding, whispering to his son that he would come to the coffee in the evening, where it was planned to extend the celebration. In the evening, he arrived at the coffee as the young people were being congratulated and presented with gifts. Emma sat at the table on the groom's side, next to the witness. Next to the bride sat the witness and the bride's parents. Taking advantage of the pause, Edward came to the table, congratulated the newlyweds again, handed them an envelope, and disappeared among the guests. Emma, who had planned to talk to him, only had time to glance at him. As soon as Edward left the cafe, his phone rang. Without a second thought, he declined the call and disconnected the phone. He spent the night in a hotel and took the first shuttle bus back to his place. In the morning, he returned home tired but nevertheless found the strength to cook bacon. He always cooked it for breakfast on weekends. He sat down at the table, poured himself some brandy, and drank it. At about 12 o'clock in the afternoon, his son called and asked, "Dad, why didn't you stay for the wedding? Son, you have lived long enough, and my main mission I have accomplished. You were there mostly with young people, and you probably realized that with my presence, I did not want to spoil your holiday. Aren't you coming tonight? We are having a gathering at our house. Son, I'm far away. When I finish setting up, I will invite you to visit." After the coffee, Emma came home and sat in the empty apartment. Her thoughts were far away. She didn't understand why Edward had done that and not stayed for her son's wedding. Sitting in the kitchen, she relived the events leading up to this tragedy. She understood that Edward was trying to show her his love, but she had put an end to their happy life together by her behavior. Sometime later, a court hearing was scheduled. Then, son Ben and his wife, and Lyda's daughter and her husband came there. Emma did not know the purpose of their presence, and before beginning, she took her lawyer aside and said to him, "I agree to all of Edward's claims. I know that dragging this case out will get me nowhere. I am to blame for this situation, and this is my punishment." Unexpectedly, Edward arrived in court. He entered the courtroom when everyone was already seated and waiting for the secretary's command. "Stand up. The court is in session." Edward walked in and sat down next to his lawyer, greeting his son and daughter as he went. He didn't pay much attention to Emma, just nodded to her. The judge answered. After unconditional recognition of the plaintiff's claims, the case was considered in an accelerated mode. Finally, the court's decision was announced. Lyda approached her father and said, "Dad, I was hoping to the last minute that you would stop the trial and forgive Mom. I'm sorry, Lyda. I didn't even consider that option. She accepted another man's proposal, and she knew what was going to happen next. And it did. You know, that man is like not a man at all. He's in hospital right now. He's gonna be there for quite some time." "What happened to him?" "He was beaten up pretty badly." "And who beat him up?" "That is unknown. He said it was two guys who attacked him from behind. He didn't get a good look at them." "Tell me, did you have nothing to do with it?" "No, I had nothing to do with it. Maybe it was one of the other men whose wives he was taken to a third-rate hotel." Meanwhile, at the hospital in the trauma unit, Tamara was spoon-feeding Jason and explaining to him, "Jason, don't stay late at work. It's getting dark early outside now, and our neighborhood guys don't know you well. They might hurt you. It's a good thing I went to meet you at the bus when you left your girlfriend's." Edward lived alone for a long time. He managed to promote himself and built a small house with all amenities in the suburbs. In time, he got together with a pretty woman, a widow whose husband had died in an accident. Emma lived alone in an empty apartment, not letting anyone else into her life, thinking about the years she had spent with Edward. At night she cried and cursed herself, her friend Stella, and Jason for what they had done to her happy family. Today, she couldn't even have a heartfelt conversation with Edward, and her whole life was filled with the joy of fiddling with her granddaughters and grandsons. Stella, having really broken her friend's family by her reckless actions and manipulations, found no happiness. She remained alone. She noticed that in the office, when she approached the female employees talking, all conversations subsided, and she heard only conversations on the topic of production. Jason walked out of the hospital. He had realized long ago that Tamara, or rather the guys from the outskirts, had put him there at her request. Tamara had hinted to him that next time he might as well stay outside. Sarah left with her daughter to her mother's house. There, she met a neighbor, single. He would spend his whole life away from home, exploring the north. He came home, he started dating Sarah, and soon proposed to her. Thank you for joining us today on Deep Stories. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video.